Hello, and welcome to Conservative to America Live Free or Die. I am your host, Cole Holcomb, and today we're going to be starting off with a special report of how Republican Congressman Representative Burleson wants to eliminate the disaster agency. He says he wants to abolish the ATF to eliminate the quote unquote disaster agency he says has been violating the Second Amendment. So, Representative Eric Burleson, Republican Missouri, wants to abolish the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, also known as the ATF, and plans to put forward a measure that would do that. So, the ATF is a disaster, Burleson said, who is a member of the Conservative House Freedom Caucus. Uh, Adding that for decades they've been a disaster agency, he said, which has been violating the Second Amendment. The congressman suggested that states should be allowed to handle matters themselves without federal interference. There's very few ATF officials, he said, accusing the agency of co-opting or commanding uh, local law enforcement to enforce laws which state lawmakers did not back. The legislature plans to introduce a proposal previously put forward in 2023 by now former representative Matt Gaetz. Burleson, a freshman who took office last year, was one of the Republicans who joined Matt Gaetz on this measure as a co-sponsor. GOP representatives Lauren Boebert of Colorado, Paul Gozer, Mary Miller, Andy Biggs, Corey Mills, a few more that go on with that, also backed it. This was from the ATF commenting on this. The ATF provides enormous benefits to the American public through all of its efforts fighting violent crime every day. ATF spokesperson Christiana Mastropakis, or however you pronounce it, said in an emailed statement. Burleson also thinks the Department of Education and the Environmental Protection Agency should be abolished. The EPA is making one-size-fits-all rules for the entire United States and is being more harmful than helpful, he said. Well, with all this being said, I'd like to go ahead and watch the video of what Eric Burleson, he has more to say on this in this video that I found on Fox News. So let's go ahead and watch that.
The ATF is a disaster. I mean, for decades, they've been a disaster agency, and they've been violating the constitutional, Second Amendment. They every time they try to get involved, they mess things up. I mean, they have a long history of mistakes, of abusing individuals' Second Amendment rights, all the way back to Ruby Ridge, to what happened at Waco, and then you had the Operation Fast and Furious. I mean, this is an agency that it just continues to violate citizens' rights and Second Amendment rights. And I think that at the end of the day, this agency needs to be abolished, and we need to let the states police what happens at the states. The ATF basically directs the states what to do anyway. I had another bill that said that the states cannot be, and our local law enforcement cannot be commandeered. Whenever I was a state senator, they could not be commandeered by the federal agencies, including the ATF, because the ATF generally, they're not the ones that actually are performing the work. There's very few ATF officials. What they do is they co-opt or they commandeer local law enforcement. The problem is you're co-opting or commandeering law enforcement to enforce laws that the legislators in those states have never passed. And so this is a problem. I think that we need to leave these decisions to the states and let their local law enforcement police their citizens. Do I think that we can accomplish this? I think that we can accomplish the agenda, the goal, in a number of ways. We can, if this bill is not going to pass, we're not going to abolish it, in law, then we can defund it. If we can't defund it, then we will find any and every rule that they're abusing and that gives them their authority, and we can repeal those. So this is a multi-pronged effort. I can't tell other Republicans how to vote, but there's constituents can, and I have a feeling that their constituents will strongly encourage them to support this bill. There's a lot of a lot of the ABCs of this town need to be abolished, starting with the Department of Education. I think that we should eliminate the EPA. Let that, there's a lot of states that, including my own, that have our own agency that handles environmental issues. Let all of these decisions be made at the state level. The EPA is making one size fits all rules for the entire United States. They're being more harmful than they're being helpful. So there are a lot of government agencies that that I'm looking forward to the new DOGE that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are putting together, along with Ron Paul, which I'm very excited about. And I'm excited to work with them to find waste and pork in the federal government and consolidate or eliminate entire agencies. Our top priorities heading into 2025, when Trump takes office, I think that he campaigned on securing the border, reducing inflation. He campaigned on making Americans healthy again. These are some of the top priorities and also downsizing government. All of those are the top priorities that I hope that we can accomplish the first 100 days. Also, tax cuts. I think the American people are expecting relief, and one of the top priorities, in addition, should be that we should, extend the Trump tax cuts and make them permanent, if not add more tax cuts.
Makes a good point with DOGE coming in, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which is great. And I'm backing all these things, getting rid of, like you said, ATF, especially the Department of Education, as everyone knows I've been against for a long, long time. Yesterday, Senator Mike Rounds, Republican of South Dakota, we discussed this on yesterday's show. We're going to continue to discuss this because this is big, and hopefully it'll pass in the Senate, then through the House, and then Donald Trump will approve it. But Senator Mike Rounds, Republican of South Dakota, debuted the Returning Education to Our States Act in the Senate yesterday. Well, this was amazing because the Department of Education has been infringing on states' rights for ever since its creation. Education is one of the few things that states get to decide for themselves. And like he said, we got to return these rights back to the states, but especially with the Department of Education. States should be controlling their education because they know best what their students and the children of their states need. I think that is really amazing because a student in California needs a different set of things than what a student in, let's say, Kansas or Nebraska or Virginia or Florida or Texas or Ohio or West Virginia or Kentucky or Tennessee or Alabama. All these states, it just varies on how these different students need their help and what they need in their education. And we need to get rid of the Department of Education. Like they said, we can reallocate certain things that they do that are good into other departments, but we need to get rid of useless government spending, paying paying hundreds of thousands of people every year to put a staple in a paper as a job, and they're getting $100,000 living right there in Washington. And guess what? Because of departments like that, they flipped states like strong Republican Virginia for the longest time into blue Virginia, into this Virginia that everybody used to know as the strong Republican, as a Republican stronghold, now as a Democrat state. So we can think departments like that, useless departments like that, who just have a ton of people who are getting paid $150,000 a year to put a staple in a piece of paper. But it's crazy that this is happening, but it's great that guys like Eric Burleson and Mike Rounds are putting bills on the floor to get rid of these programs and to get rid of these departments. And it looks like it'll probably work because of the administration that we have right now. Because they, well, not right now, but the administration is getting ready to come in. The administration that will come in through the Senate, into the United States Senate, the administration that will come into the U.S. House, then the administration that will come into the presidency. This is amazing. I think the big things are getting ready to happen in this new Trump administration, like he said, going with the Trump tax cuts. Whenever we start getting rid of useless government agencies, we can start cutting back on taxes and make the American people wealthy again and put money back in their pocketbook. And if we do that, we'll win the midterms, we'll win in 2028, and hopefully we might even win the midterms again in 2030 and get back in the White House. So we might have a Republican president for 16 years. But this is amazing what Republicans have right now. We need to hold on. We need to keep pushing the line, keep fighting to get the job done for Americans and get tax cuts, and get tax breaks for Americans, and then to get rid of useless government agencies that are wasting American tax dollars. This is what we need to do. And it's great that these guys pushed it. I'm all for it. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning on to Live Free or Die here today on November the 22nd, 2024. I'm your host, Cole Holcomb. And remember to check back in on the K&H Angle and cover prime time this evening. Thanks. Have a good evening.